Welcome to America Uncanceled. I'm Mercedes Schlapp. Over the past few years, Loudoun County, Virginia has made headline news for the brave parents, or quote, domestic terrorists, according to the Biden administration, as they protested the local county board of education and the school boards. These parents began what I say, not only was it the Virginia Revolution, but it inspired parents all across America to start speaking up for their children in public schools. And this past week, Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin pardoned Scott Smith, a parent who was convicted of disorderly conduct after he protested the Loudoun County Board of Education due to their cover-up of the sexual assault of his daughter. Joining us to discuss this win for parental rights and freedom, and also to talk about the importance of parental involvement in the upcoming elections, he's one of my favorite people, is Lieutenant Governor of Virginia, Winsome Sears. Lieutenant Governor, thank you for joining me.
Oh, thank you for having me, Mercedes.
So let's get right to it. I gotta tell you, when I read the news of Governor Glenn Youngkin's pardon of Scott Smith, we have seen him on videos where he was arrested for quote unquote disorderly conduct. When the governor gave that pardon, tell us about your reaction. Why was this pardon so important?
Well, think about it, Mercedes. You had a father whose daughter had been raped, and he wanted to understand how could this have happened. He came to his government at that time, the school board, to ask them about policies that will cause his daughter to have to live for this for the rest of her life. And you can hear the ache in this dad. And he was summarily dragged out like a dog and charged with obstruction of justice and disorderly conduct. And of course, the governor, himself a father, and you don't have to be a father to feel that the pain. And Governor Youngkin said, no, this was a travesty, and he pardoned him. And by the way, Scott Smith said he accepted the pardon because he did not believe he would get justice. Think about that.
Yes, and that's really where we're entering into, and you understand this obviously as, coming to this country, and here we are where you see, where you even feel that there's these multiple layers of a justice system in play, in terms of how certain individuals are treated versus others. We saw the Loudoun County Democratic Commonwealth's attorney, Buddha Bibaraj, basically coming out, really criticizing Youngkin's pardon, basically saying that this was a political play. What's your sense in terms of why we've seen such aggression come from these attorneys, these Democrat attorneys that are basically trying to take on and target these parents?
If I had a dollar for every time I tried to figure out these extreme leftists, I wouldn't need the lottery, but none of it makes any sense, Mercedes. This is why, it blows our minds. But we're not going to let them live rent-free in our heads. We are going to combat them through elections, because that's the only thing that they understand. We got to get these folks who are so far left that if the earth was flat, they'd fall off. We got to get them out of office. And that's what I hope that we are working towards in Virginia, to make sure that this coming election in November, that we have all our ducks in a row. We've knocked all the doors. We've donated as much as we could. We put out our signs. We've made phone calls. We've done what we need to do, because eventually, when all is said and done, elections have consequences. And that's what we need.
Let's look at the Senate breakup. And this is always so interesting because, obviously for most states, the elections happen on even years. For states like Virginia and New Jersey, for example, it happens in odd years, which I think is always harder to get people engaged in these off-year elections. We've got Democrats with 22 Senate seats, Republicans with 18 Senate seats here in Virginia. What do you think is going to be the change? How can we get those swing districts to basically turn red, turn Republican? What is it going to take?
I think we're going to have to really work hard, and we're going to have to outwork them. We assume nothing. And that's why I'm doing so many fundraisers, and I'm going around and having rallies. And so is the governor, by the way. I mean, you see what he's trying to do to make sure that everybody understands 2023 has to change. We cannot have a Democrat Senate and a Republican House, because we will have nothing change. And by the way, the Democrats are going to be even worse this time, because then they'll be emboldened. They'll
Yeah.
say, well, look, you did everything you could and we still won. So we have a strategy, and we're going to win with that strategy. We're knocking on every door. We are doing early voting. Voting, by the way, starts in a few weeks, September 22nd. Think about this.
Wow.
Even though the actual election day is not until November, that first Tuesday in November. And so we want everybody to go to secureyourvotevirginia.com and sign up to get on the absentee ballot. I did. And you know what's going to happen? When my state board of elections sent a letter to me to confirm that they have my request for absentee ballot, they said in that letter, from now on, you will receive 45 days before every election a ballot for every primary election, for every general election, and for every special election. I'm going to have my ballot, if I could hold it up, with the little ovals ready to be filled in, sitting on my kitchen table. That's how the other side is doing it. Folks, the rules have changed. We've got to change with the rules.
I like what you're thinking here, because I think one of the things is Republicans love to vote the day of, and then before you know it, there's this issue, that issue. I couldn't get to the polls. I had a sick kid. And in essence, what we're saying is get out early, vote early. It's actually probably the better way to do it in a lot of ways. Why do you think the Democrats really have done just a better job of, I would say, out hustling the Republicans when it comes to early voting?
That's exactly the right word, because they have left no stone unturned.
Right.
They have gone to the churches, and I have watched where they have marched people to the polls and signed them up. They have had picnics. They have had churches and other houses of worship become drop box sites. We can do that in Virginia. Our churches, houses of worship can sign up to be drop box sites. And they have gone to the colleges and universities, and they have signed up the college kids. They have gone to nursing homes and done that. They have gone to games and had people stationed outside the games. I mean, we have got to do the same thing. We can't wait anymore on election day, because, as you said, we might be ill. We might be working late. We might have a sick child or sick parent. Whatever it is, elections are way too important.
So you mentioned the churches, which I actually think, there's such a natural coalition, I think, to the Republican Party, because when you look at the Democrats, they're so extreme when it comes to the issue of abortion. Obviously, their obsession with puberty blockers and gender ideology, this idea that the schools, you're seeing some of these teachers where they push the sexuality on these kids at a very early age, instead of teaching the basics like math and science, so we compete not only nationally but internationally. So the key is I really think the churches is one of the most important places to go, in addition to the minority communities. I think we're at a point right now that building that coalition with Hispanic voters, Black voters, Asian voters, saying, look, there's rising prices, the economy is not as strong under Bidenomics. And on top of that, we have these social issues. What do you think are going to be the primary issues as we're going into this election in November?
Well, I think it's still going to be about the parents, that we in this administration, the Youngkin administration, want parents to know that they're in charge of their children. They're always in charge, that the government is not going to dictate to them how to raise their children, that we're trying to especially protect their daughters, their girl children, because you can't have a biological male sitting there or standing with the trophy at the top rung and feeling good about himself. Oh, you beat the girls? Really?
Right.
And you feel good about that? No, I don't think so. And so the college scholarships are gone, or whatever other monies that they could have, an opportunity, a better opportunity is gone for them. So they understand also their children aren't learning, no matter how much money we're, throwing into education. They want parental school choice. It's always the same. Am I safe? Is my community safe? Is my family safe? what can I afford to buy the things that are necessary for us to be successful as a family? Little things like food,
Yeah.
little things like filling up the tank. Um, and then what does it look like when it comes to education? Are my children going to have a hope and a future so that they can get a good start in life? And finally, I don't want you, the government, telling me again how to raise my child. I am trying to prepare my child to enter into society so that, they understand the rules of self-government, and the family is where you learn that. I don't want you making policies at the school board that will destroy my family and my influence in my child's own life, and then giving them mental health issues because I take them to school as a girl, you have them there as a boy, and then I pick them back up, and I'm wondering what is going on with my child. So we just have to really outwork everyone. And again, the rules have changed. We have got to change with the times. And don't listen to anyone who's telling you that no, you can't depend on the election system. Don't go vote early. Even if I don't vote with my ballot, by putting it back in the mail, I can take that ballot and take it down to the registrar and vote with it. Yes,
Right.
I can even hold it until election day and use that same ballot and go vote on election day. But consider this, I will have my ballot 45 days before the majority of the people. That's how the other side is winning. We've got to change the way we think.
So I got to say, I've really been impressed with the commitment of the governor, of you as well, and the team, just really honing in on these elections, making it a priority as well. But let's go back to this issue of crime. We live here in the city of Alexandria. I can't even tell you how many times we're driving and there's like a police scene, a mile or two, and then you get the ring notifications, and they're like, there was a bank robbery, there was this. There's obviously been this shift in the cities, and I would say I have to go into Washington D.C. every day as well, and you see this increase of homelessness, this issue with drugs. You're seeing people, for example, I do work with the Society of St. Vincent de Paul, so we deal a lot with these people calling about they can't afford rent. What can be done, and especially when you have a divided government in Virginia, what can be done to help basically reduce the crime levels that we're seeing, especially in the cities, in the part of the cities in Virginia?
Well, actually, this is why I keep talking about elections, because we can only go as far as we can get enough Democrats, especially in the Senate, to break from their party and come to the side of common sense. They're not coming to the Republican side, they're coming to the side of common sense, because what we're trying to do will work for everyone.
Right.
We tried in Virginia, for example, the Youngkin administration put in a bill that if you deal in fentanyl and it kills someone, then that's a felony.
Mm.
Do you know, Mercedes, we didn't have one Democrat, not one Democrat taker on that. So that bill died in the Senate. Then we tried to protect our Jewish brothers and sisters by putting forward a law that finally declared anti-Semitism so we could put it in the code, into law. We only had two Democrats who refused to gut the bill, who then gave me the opportunity to break the tie so that we could protect our Jewish brothers and sisters.
Wow.
Only two Democrats.
Right.
So that's why we need to have a Republican majority because in the Senate, and keep the House, because otherwise, my goodness, I don't know what we're going to do.
Let's talk about the budget. There was a compromise budget deal. The one I read, which was interesting, was the House Minority Leader Don Scott, who really struck a very partisan tone in his speech. And he's obviously obsessed with the issue of abortion. But he basically says, quote, Virginians cannot afford to fund any outrageous or aggressive tax breaks the MAGA extremists want to suggest we can to big corporations. So, of course, the lines that these people use are always the extremists, that the Republicans are extremists. What's your response to House Minority Leader Don Scott when it came to the budget and the fact that obviously it doesn't sound to me like he wants a compromise in this sense?
Well, I mean, I hope he understands how the government got the money in the first place. We, the taxpayers, pay that money into the government for the government to wisely use it and to make sure that it's not used against us. And by the way, if you've got a surplus, how about you give me some of my money back? And we have found that when you give tax breaks or refunds, that it makes the economy better because we know best how to spend it. Maybe we need those few dollars that we can buy that laundry, that washing machine, or we need to fix up the house. And that money just it goes around in a better way than the government dictating winners and losers. And by the way, we also wanted to give tax breaks to some businesses because Mercedes, the roads we love, the roads,
yes,
the schools. Who do you think pays for that? The job creators, otherwise known as businesses. We want businesses to come to Virginia. Government doesn't create jobs. It can lose us jobs. And so that's another reason why we need to win, so we can help get rid of these onerous regulations that help no one, making reports that nobody reads, that sits on a shelf collecting dust and does nothing for the business bottom line. So, what we need to do is just to let them be. And we need, as Republicans, to get ourselves to the polls, absentee ballots. And by the way, sign up to be officers of the election. You'll get paid a little bit of a stipend, but, you'll be able to run the election and see how things work. And if you sign up, by the way, to be an absentee ballot person, then we will no longer mail to you because we'll know that you've already voted. We won't know how you vote, but we'll know you voted. We won't knock on your door anymore. We won't send any mailers. We won't call you. We'll use the money wisely and call somebody else, knock on somebody else's door because we know that you've already voted. So it works.
Yeah. And look, we know elections have consequences. We've seen what's happened under a President Biden presidency, which is you watch him on the international stage and you just feel sorry for the guy. And you even have
the leader of the free world.
Exactly, where he can't even hold a serious press conference or answer serious questions in this moment of time where I think our adversaries are looking at us saying, what is going on with America? Final thoughts here on, as we're moving into the 2024 election, looking at President Biden is specifically in terms of what do you think is going to happen there? I mean, how can the American people continue to go down this route?
I keep hearing about the polls this and the polls that. I want us to not believe polls so much. You know why? Because I think that no matter what, the Democrats are going to vote for Biden.
Yeah.
How do you know that? Because they voted for Fetterman over a doctor who had his full faculties. And so don't kid ourselves. We've got to work hard. If they can push Biden through again, they will. And so we've got to make sure that whoever wins the primary on the Republican side, that folks, we can win in November because the Democrats are determined to win.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's good insight. And I'm just so blessed that you are my lieutenant governor in the Commonwealth of Virginia, as I'm a resident of Virginia, proud resident. So I want to thank you all for your leadership. Thank you for your leadership. You're an inspiration for so many women out there and so many leaders out there, as well as you just always stand on the side of courage and the side of truth. And we appreciate you. God bless you, Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears.
Thank you. And don't forget my book, How Sweet It Is.
Oh,
available wherever books are sold.
That's great. Tell us about your book.
Yes. So it's How Sweet It Is. And I talk about, the death threats that I received 22 years ago when I was first, running for election. Yeah. I mean, some things don't change, do they? I mean, now it's mostly insults. So that's still the I talk about the tragedies that I've suffered and I talk about the greatness of America and, that we have to keep moving forward. Forward is forward. We're not looking back. We learn from history, Mercedes. Someone once said that we don't learn from history. So we've got to learn those lessons, but keep going forward. This American experiment has to continue. Yeah. She's bold and she's beautiful, and we're going to make her even better because finally we have to protect America and preserve her for the next generation. That is always the charge.
So How Sweet It Is, where can you buy a copy?
You can buy it at Amazon or at your local bookstore or any place online.
I love it. I think, it's one of the things about life that you learn, which is, my father would also, an immigrant from Cuba would say the same thing. Even in the midst of tragedy, you have to keep moving forward, moving ahead, and know that God is with you. So thank you
Amen.
so much. Make sure you get the book. And thank you for joining us, Winsome Sears.
Thank you all.
And we want to thank everyone for tuning in. And remember, if you missed an episode, you can always go back and watch on our website. Just go to cpac.org/now, or you can listen wherever you get your podcast. We'll see you next time. God bless.